What's up, everybody? He's Thom Abraham. I'm Mick Gillispie. We're getting ready to do our segment for the Tailgate radio show, but I love doing this now beforehand because I don't want to confuse any of you guys that are watching for the first time going, what the hell are they talking about Saturday for? It's not Saturday. We do some of these segments pre-recorded, and it's always great to have Thom on, fresh out of his fishing excursion.
Yeah,
part of the Pro-Am, Thom, and you're out there on the docks and fishing. So how did it go?
well, it went all right. It was fun. I mean, it's Florida fishing, so it's always going to be kind of sketchy. We had a big storm that rolled through on Thursday that kind of washed out the first day of the tournament, and then so we fished Friday and Saturday, and it kind of changed everything that was out there. But I love Florida. I love fishing down there. I used to live down there, and it was the Harris Chain of Lakes north of Orlando. So it's always interesting, and I finished in the middle of the pack. So I'm South Carolina. What can I tell you?
So if Pro-Am, you got the pro in the front, and you're the amateur in the back. Although you do cover this like a pro. I mean, you're a pro as far as covering fishing. Do you guys win as a team and lose as a team, or is this you're still just on the back of the boat, but it's your own thing?
Yeah, the co-anglers fish against the co-anglers. The pros are fishing against the pros. They're fishing for $50,000 first place and a purse that pays down to 40th place. The amateurs are fishing for $17,000 first place, and then it goes all the way down to 40th place as well. I think the last check was like $550, something like that. So it's so you're only fishing against the same guys that are fishing from the back of the boat, and it's an experience. To be honest with you, it really is a heck of an experience, and to see these guys do their work is incredible. But they're getting younger and younger, Mick. I mean, it's just they're so good with their electronics. And the guy I fished with on day one, I had lures that were older than him. I think he was 20 years old, 21 years old, and I'm like, goodness gracious almighty! But it's a lot of fun, and it's you learn a lot.
How did he finish?
He went into it 16th in points for the season. He ended up finishing about 30th in this tournament. He didn't do bad, but this was the last tournament. It's like the AAA level, to use a baseball term. It's the AAA. It's the St. Croix Bassmaster Opens. So it's the AAA level of professional fishing, and the top 9 guys for the season advance to the elite level, which is the major leagues. Where they fish for $100,000 every week in their tournaments and so on. And so he just missed out on that. But the 9 guys that qualified for the elites, 8 of them were under 30 years old. I mean, it's incredible how young, it has become. It's just nuts. But
fishing's a young man's sport. I didn't know that, but we know that
electronics.
Now.
It's because of the electronics. I mean, it's gotten to the point where it's video game fishing. I mean, they're talking about doing something to maybe regulate some of that, because it's gotten incredible. These units are $2,500 a piece, and some of these young guys, they got 6 of them on their boats. And they just sit there and they look down. They don't even look at the water. They're not looking at anything, the nature or the conditions. They're just looking down the whole time. And then they have this live thing that's going back and forth. That's kind of scoping. They call it live scope. That's out in front of the boat, and they can see a pack of fish. And you cast to them, and they see their lure go down into the school. And I mean, it's just absolutely nuts. And us older guys, we're used to fishing. Hey, there's some good lily pads over there. There's some good weeds, or whatever. There's a dock. We're going to pitch up under that dock. And not these kids. They're out in the middle of the lake, fishing for schools of bass. So it's it is kind of fascinating to watch.
That's crazy. All right, well, let's get this radio show started, and good luck to you next time on the bass fishing.
Oh, yeah.
Now let's talk a little bit of Alabama football. Welcome back to the original Bama Football Tailgate Show, previewing Alabama and Tennessee, the annual third Saturday in October showdown. And it's actually the third Saturday in October this year as number 11 Alabama takes on number 18 Tennessee. But before we get there, let me remind you guys that this segment with our friend Thom Abraham from 97.7 ESPN The Zone and the Tailgate Show is always presented to you by Visit Sevierville. Now's a good time to visit Sevierville and get a real good feel of the mountains.
See yourself in Sevierville, Tennessee. Your Smokies start here.
All right, Thom, let's talk some Alabama. Let's talk some Tennessee. The Volunteers not too far from Sevierville. They play out of Knoxville, but they'll be in Tuscaloosa when they take on Alabama today. Both of these teams coming off of tight wins on Saturday. Alabama had the big lead against Arkansas, and they almost let it slip away. And I think a lot of people alarmed by the way that the Crimson Tide played. And then Tennessee, beat Texas A&M. They really didn't move the ball well, but they had a punt return for a touchdown and played great defense. Let's start with Alabama. Your thoughts on the way that game finished, and should we be alarmed?
Alarmed? I don't know that I would be alarmed. I mean, they were up 21-3 at the half, or 21-6 at the half, and they let off the gas, as you say. Some curious play calling again as we try to get Tommy Rees. By the way, Rees is spelled R-E-E-S. All of you guys, you keyboard warriors that are criticizing Tommy Rees every week, spell his name right at least. If you're going to criticize the guy, at least spell his name right. He's not Reese Davis, R-E-C-E. It's not Reese's Pieces. There's no E at the end of it. It's R-E-E-S. And, in the second half, there was a point in time where Jalen Milroe was 1 of 11. And they were running the ball well. They were running the ball the best they've run it with the running backs all season long. Why did they stop running the ball? And in that first drive of the second half, they run it right down the field, and they get that 3rd and 3 down there at the 14, 15-yard line, whatever it was. And they go with a low percentage pass. It didn't make any sense. I'm thinking, you know what? Keep pounding the rock. Right. If you don't get it on 3rd down, you're going to have nothing left on 4th down. You do it twice if you have to, and just pound it in, make it a 28-6 game, and you're off and running. So I thought that was a little curious that they didn't run the ball more in the second half. And I think emotionally they let up a little bit. But I also think that serves them very well going into the preparation for today, because all week long, that the theme has been finish, finish, finish. Now, if they had gone in there and blown them out, blown Arkansas out by 41-10 or something like that, who knows? These guys might have thought that we're a thing and we could just throw our jerseys out there and beat Tennessee. I guarantee you it was a very active week this past week of practice getting ready for Tennessee.
Yeah, I feel like that too. And I mean, look, last year's game, 52-49. I had a few problems with the officiating, but also Alabama didn't do a whole lot to help themselves with all those penalties in that football game. And then Tennessee, I felt like they really rubbed it in. And maybe after 15 years, that's what you do. But if you're Alabama, there's a lot of extra motivation because of that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't think that, one thing about Alabama is they've never rushed the field, right? Because Bear Bryant said we expect to win the game. You always expect to win the game, so you don't rush the field. Alabama has never rushed the field. Mm-mm. They're not tearing goalposts down. They're not going to throw the goalposts into Warrior River when if they beat Tennessee. It's just not the way they roll. But having said that, for Tennessee, there was a bigger release of emotion. I know one thing: this isn't going to be a 52-49 game. I'm not sure it's going to be 2005. Remember the 6-3. Rocky Stop game is. I don't think it's going to be 6-3, but this game has slobber knocker written all over it. It's amazing to me how different these two teams are this year than they were last year, and how similar they are this year. Whereas they're running the ball great. They're 6th in the nation rushing the ball. They're playing defense. You believe that? Defense with Tennessee and Josh Heupel. It's the first game Josh Heupel ever won against a P5 team that he scored less than 30 points in. I mean, Josh Heupel doesn't win 20-13 games. So there's a lot of things, a lot of similarities here. I'm kind of stunned at the line that is maintained 8.5-point favorite for Alabama, because they don't feel like they don't blow anybody really out. And it would seem like these two teams both play great defense, both want to run the ball. Neither one of them can throw it very good. At least Alabama can throw it deep. Joe Milton, if you need to throw it 80 yards, Joe Milton will throw it 80 yards. If you need to throw it 15 yards, Joe Milton will throw it 80 yards. So he's not the most accurate guy out there, but it's really interesting how these two teams are so similar. And I'm expecting a slobber knocker today.
Yeah, well, they're similar because their quarterbacks have kind of had issues. Obviously, Milton doesn't have the targets that Hooker had last year. They've had some injuries. So the wide receiver talent favors Alabama, which is hard to believe when you think about Tennessee and what Josh Heupel wants to do. And you're right, this is a different Tennessee team they're going to try to run the football, and they did. They ran all over Texas A&M, which is surprising because Alabama couldn't do that. But then you look at Milroe, and he takes all these sacks. Offensive line's part of it. Running backs not blocking are part of it, but also part of it's his fault. He holds the ball too long. He doesn't pick up blitzes very fast, so he takes a lot of heat. And the other thing, Thom, some people that I talk to say that I could be right. Some people are saying maybe I'm in the wrong spot. I think that Milroe has some kind of a leg injury that is slowing him down. I don't see the explosiveness. They're not running the ball with him anymore. Even when he's chased out of the pocket, he doesn't look fast. I've talked to people that say, hey, maybe it's a shoulder. I feel like it's a hamstring or something down in the leg. Are you noticing that too, or am I just crazy?
No. I think there was rumor of that a couple of weeks ago. I think he's had some sort of strain in a leg. It's a lower body thing, whatever it is, and he hasn't had that same explosiveness. Now we'll see, what he can do running the ball. I mean, I think he's the key to the whole game. I think this is really a Milroe Milton thing. Which one of these guys will get loose on a big run, maybe on a big scramble, a key third down that they convert, a 3rd and 18 that all of a sudden is first down. Milton has shown an ability to run a little bit more recently. And then if they can protect, the big matchup here is that defensive front of Tennessee against that offensive line that's been a sieve at times for Alabama. If that offensive line can give Milroe some time, if they can hit a couple of big ones down the field, that seems to be the thing that they do, each and every week. But I agree that Milroe I think he's responsible for half the 31 sacks. I really do. And here's the deal. People are going to continue to put 7 and 8 guys in the box. They're going to continue to rush 7 and play man-to-man behind until he starts hitting some hot reads. Until he hits a slant behind the blitz quick and reads it, or hits a back that's wide open in the flat because they sent 7 and they left a couple of guys wide open, or left a running back that could leak out. Until he burns them, they're going to just line up and say, we're coming after you. Let's see what you got, big boy. And that's what they're doing. And defenses are doing to him. And, he's got to make them pay. And we'll see if he can do it starting today.
Malachi Moore going to be back for Alabama on defense. That's got to help them some, but not the way that we would have expected, right? Where you're expecting a lot of passing. This is going to be a grinded out physical football game. Tennessee's going to try to run, but I feel like that plays into Alabama's strength, stopping the run.
Yeah, Alabama's pretty good at stopping the run. There's no doubt about it. Their front seven's been good. Malachi Moore will be a big part of that. He does play near the line of scrimmage a lot out of his position, and he is that kind of that alley runner type guy. Everybody has a gap responsibility, and then you have that safety or whatever you star bandit, whatever you want to call him in your nomenclature. He's the alley runner. That's the guy that'll fill the gaps and and make the play. So I think that'll be a big help. But that's a huge part of this game. That good rush offense, running offense of Tennessee, and can Alabama slow them down and make them semi one-dimensional? If you can keep them to, they average 206 yards a game. So if you can keep them to 110 or 120 and they have to throw, then they're going to have some success. But again, what do I say every week? Survive in advance. That's exactly what happened against Arkansas. Survive in advance. That's this game. They might not cover the spread. Doesn't matter. Keep winning football games, and somehow, some way, get yourself to Atlanta, and maybe you see Georgia over there. You expect to see Georgia over there. They won't deny them. That's when the playoffs will start for Alabama. So it really doesn't matter how pretty it is. This is Gene Stallings football. This is 1992. Survive in advance.
All right, last thing before we head to the second half of the show. It just feels like Nick Saban's program is slid back. Tennessee's is taking a step forward. I still think Alabama's a little bit above Tennessee. Do you think it's the NIL, the transfer portal, or Nick Saban is he losing his touch? But why is Alabama digressing? It's slow, but it's happening.
It's happened some. Look, you can't hit. They're still recruiting at a super high level. Their recruiting classes are always 1 or 2 in the country, so they're still getting elite talent. But you can't continue to hit year in and year out on all of these guys. The Alabama fans got very spoiled at how Alabama was able to not only recruit at a high level, but then development is still a very big thing. And they've had an incredible amount of staff turnover over the years. So how many times in a row are you going to get the right offensive coordinator and the right defensive coordinator, and then the talent turns out to be great? Now we know there's a litany of names that Alabama has recruited, that were supposed to be it got Blake Barnett, oh my gosh, Blake Barnett, this was the guy, and Jalen Hurts took over 2 series in, and we know what happened there. Josh Jacobs comes in as the last guy to get a scholarship, and he ends up being an outstanding contributor. So there's still that wild card of bringing in 17, 18, and 19-year-old kids. I don't think they've slipped nearly as far as some people think. It's just the standard is so ridiculously high. What happens if they drop this game today? What happens if they, still get to Atlanta and lose the SEC championship game and win a bowl game? Oh my God, 11-3, or 10-3, whatever it would be. I mean, that's the world coming to an end. It's just a different standard that we're holding them to. The discipline issue is a problem. That's the question that I have. That's the only thing, because that is still on Nick Saban. He's the one that's responsible for his team to not be making bad penalties. They only had 5 against Arkansas, but 2 resulted in first downs for Arkansas. So that's like a turnover, when that happens. Don't make those silly mistakes, and certainly remember last year, 17 penalties, as you mentioned, up in Neyland Stadium. They had 15 penalties, I think, at Baton Rouge last year. Those 2 games that they lost, penalty-ridden. There's no excuse for it today. They're in their own building. No excuse for pre-snap penalties or any of that stuff. And if they play clean football, they're going to win a football game. It might not be what y'all want. It might not be 40-10, but it will be a win if they can play clean football.
Third Saturday in October is brought to you by Sevierville, 4 self-guided tours that take you through the back roads and historical points of interest. And check out the beautiful fall views with maps and videos and everything else at visitsevierville.com/fall. Always great to talk to Thom Abraham, host of the Thom Abraham Show, every single day on 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Roll Tide, my friend. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, man. Roll Tide.